Today, we're honored and grateful to have John Lee Dumas with us. And for all of you who know, he's the startup entrepreneur on fire. Now, we don't have a lot of time, so I really want to get into it, right, John? Now, you've gone from corporate America to being an entrepreneur. Now, what was the biggest mindset shift that you had to undertake in order to become a successful entrepreneur?
That is a great question, and I can honestly sum it up with one quote, which I'll then expound upon. It's an Albert Einstein quote, which is, try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value. And to be 100% honest, during my time in corporate America, I was chasing success. I was chasing respect. I was chasing money. And I wasn't finding success in any of those ventures by doing that. But when I flipped it on its head and I said, you know what? I am going to become a person of value. I'm going to deliver free, valuable, and consistent content to the world and see what happens. And when I flipped it on its head and I just focused on that value first proposition, everything changed. It gave me the idea to launch a daily podcast interviewing the world's most successful entrepreneurs. It allowed me to build a business, which is now a multi-million-dollar revenue generating business a year, giving me location independence, financial independence, and freedom. And it was all really from that one mindset shift of, listen, I'm not going to chase success. I'm not going to try to focus on success. I'm going to focus on providing value first and foremost and see where that leads.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And, one of the biggest things I admire about you, and you mentioned it earlier just now, it's about consistency. You've been interviewing entrepreneurs for what might seem like an eternity consistently. And I believe that success is a series of small actions done well consistently. Now, how do you keep going even when you don't feel like it, even when it's hard?
So that's interesting. I feel like if I had a daily show, which I do have a daily show that's released, but if I had a show that I had to interview people every single day, then I would have those bad days. Because, I had those days where I would be less enthusiastic or not feeling well or this or that. And so it would come across during the interview. But one thing that I've done that I think is really important, that when you're going to be producing things at a high quantity, meaning a lot of stuff, you got to figure out a way to batch and to systemize that. So for me, I have 2 days per month where I block off, and those 2 days are just all in for interviews. I do 15 interviews on the first day and then 15 interviews on the second day, and then I'm done interviewing for the month. So I know those 2 days are my game days. I wake up and I just crush it. I get in the zone and I just make it happen. Those are my 2 days per month, and I bring the heat. And because of that, I'm able to bring the best of me for those 2 days, knowing that, hey, this is my time to shine. The other 28, 29 days in the month, I can do other things. I can rest, I can recoup, I can recover, I can focus, I can relax, I can do any of those things. But these 2 days, game time, make it happen. So I think if you're going to be coming up with a system or, just a business where you're going to be producing a lot of content, how can you produce a lot of content on a focused batch time frame and then make it happen for you on that system and automation wise?
Awesome. I think that's really, really helpful. We do a lot of content here at the Leverage Group as well. And that's exactly what we do. We put it into very specific days where we batch it out, nut everything out, and then get that done. Now, the show is called The Leverage Advantage. And really, I think entrepreneurs lie on a very wide spectrum. Some work 18-hour days and can barely make ends meet, right? And then on the other end of the spectrum, you see people who are playing golf pretty much every day, and yet money still keeps coming in. Now, the secret sauce, in my opinion, really is leverage. How do you leverage your time? And, what's one big tip for our listeners on how they can create leverage in their business?
One big tip, and this might sound counterintuitive at first, but hear me out. Do things that don't scale. Do things that don't scale. When you do things that don't scale, you're then able to, down the road, when you have patience, because this is a marathon, this is not a sprint, you're able to leverage and to scale and to be that person on the golf course 5 days a week while you're still crushing it back in the business sector of it, because you were willing to, at the beginning, do things that don't scale. So what's an example of that? Well, doing things that don't scale would be having one-on-one conversations with your customers, with your clients, with your listeners of your podcast, whatever that might be, having one-on-one conversations. That does not scale, that one-on-one conversation, because that's your time, one other person's time, but you're going to ask questions like, what are you struggling with? And then your customer, your client, your listeners, your viewers, they're going to tell you their obstacles, their challenges, their problems. And then you can create the solution for them in the form of a product or a service or a community. And guess what? That product is scalable. That service is scalable. That community is scalable. So now you've taken the time to do things that don't scale, have those one-on-one conversations, to learn and to have aha moments and ideas to produce and create things that do scale. And so for me, I have a lot of things in my business that scale, but they all stem from those one-on-one conversations, from doing things that initially did not scale.
Excellent, excellent. And so here's the thing. I mean, your podcast has been going on for a long time, but if you could go back in time, say 10 years, and tell your old self one thing, what would that be?
If I could go back 10 years ago, I would honestly circle back to that quote that I shared at the beginning of the show, which I think is so important. Don't try to be a person of success, but rather be a person of value. Because 10 years ago, I was still 4 years away from launching my podcast, from launching Entrepreneur on Fire. So I had 4 years where I was still chasing success, where I was still chasing money and respect. And those were 4 wasted years. So I'd go back and I would say, listen, John, now, today, start being a person of value. Find something that you're inspired by, that you're passionate about, that you're curious about, and provide value in that area and let the doors open for you in the right ways. And that would have given me a 4-year head start to where I am now.
Awesome. And here's the thing, John, like, I think every entrepreneur faces this, right? You go through challenges, you overcome them, and then the biggest reward for overcoming a challenge or problem is you get a bigger one, right? So my question to you, what's been the biggest challenge for you so far in your business career, and how have you overcome it?
My biggest challenge today, right now, as we're speaking, with all the success that I've had, is what to say no to. Because when you start, you should be saying yes to almost everything. You have to be a yes man or a yes woman. You have to say yes, yes, yes. Say yes to opportunities, because you don't know what's behind those doors. And you have to learn and make mistakes and make wins and uncover awesome things by not knowing. But as you start to find some success, there's going to be more opportunities that come at you than you can handle. So you have to learn to identify those opportunities for what they are, and you have to fall in love with saying no. And you get to this point, which is a great Derek Sivers quote: if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So that's one of my biggest struggles right now, is finding the very few things that I want to say yes to, because there's limitless opportunities for me, you know, with how big my podcast is and my platform is and how big my bank account is and how all these things like give me all these opportunities. I could be doing so many things. But for me at this stage, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I think that people need to realize that it doesn't start that way. But when you get to that point, you got to recognize it, flip the switch, and start being very careful about what you say yes to.
Awesome. Well, we don't have that much time left, so I was wondering, let's do some quick fire questions, really quick. You ready, man?
Do it.
All right. What's the best advice you've ever received?
You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think we all need to identify the 5 people that we're engaging with the most, because that's going to be critical to your success.
Awesome. And can you share one of your personal habits that you strongly believe contributes to your success?
Daily exercise. I mean, what is life without health? If you're not healthy, you can be the richest man in the world or the poorest man in the world / woman, and you're going to be unhappy. So you have to commit to daily exercise. Your health, it's everything.
Awesome. And what's one book you would recommend as a must read?
The One Thing by Gary Keller. I think in this world of distraction and noise, we've got to recognize that we as individuals have to be able to focus, follow one course until success on one thing. Become the best at one thing for once, you know, for just one time in your life. Choose something to be the best at. And so to do that, don't be vague and be like, I want to be the best, you know, fill in the blank in the world. Like that might not happen, but if you want to be the best niche down, niche down, niche down, niche down, you can be the best at that area. And then from that point, once you're the best, then you can broaden your scope and become, you know, one of the best at a very meaningful place.
Oh, that's awesome advice. What's your one thing, man?
You know, right now, my one thing is creating daily valuable content for my audience. I focus on how to make that better, how to get it out into the right channels and make it happen.
And how do you constantly keep coming up with valuable content? Is it about repackaging things that really work into different contexts, or does something new always come to you?
Now, what happens is I engage with my audience. I ask them questions. I encourage them to ask me questions. I put things out there into the world that facilitates engagement. And so they're always coming to me with their questions and problems and concerns and victories and fears and successes. And you take that information because your finger's on the pulse, and then you make content from that awesomeness.
Awesome. Hey, I'm really, you know, aware of your time. So I really only have one more question for you. It's real quick. How can I help you?
Well, listen, you can help me by doing what you're already doing, and that's putting out valuable content into the world. You are now becoming that person of value that we talked about. You are continuing to be that person of value, and just keep doing that, man, because it's the ripple effect where me, you, everybody listening has the opportunity to add their voice, their message, their mission to the world and impact and inspire others.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm sure the audience will love it. And hey, I look forward to connecting with you again, man. Cheers.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Hey there, thanks so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, check out the relevant video here. And don't forget to subscribe to us for more marketing tips, techniques, strategies that are working for us, or just more behind the scenes fun. See ya.